Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Joe Schaefer, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Graham Noble. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. Let's be clear. There is no president-elect. 538 members of the Electoral College have yet to vote, and when they do, we will have one. So why do we see governors such as Brian Kemp of Georgia trying to push the results for Biden? Why is Geraldo Rivera and other prominent Republicans calling for Trump to concede? Doesn't this seem like backstabbing to the guy who reinvented the GOP? Do people want to go back in time when party slicks like Romney and McCain wait in line for their turn? Graham, you've been keeping an eagle eye on counts and recounts. Why do you see folks like Governors Kemp and Ducey in Arizona rushing to judgment? Or do you find this a bit disloyal?
Well, I think I certainly would describe it as disloyal. And I think basically it comes down to a very simple thing, is that they are looking out for themselves. They're thinking of their own political futures. These people obviously believe that it is inevitable that Joe Biden will become president and will take office in January 2021. And I think they are afraid. I think they are afraid to resist that inevitability and then suddenly find themselves in a position where they are still the governor of a state, and the president who is at that time, they believe, Joe Biden, hates them and may have it out for them because they stood against him. And so I think it's very much a case of that. They just don't, they're putting their own self-interest above everything else. And the thing I consider most offensive about it, and I say this in a completely non-partisan way, is that anybody who is willing to just go with the outcome so far of this election, knowing, as you know, any reasonable, logical observer knows that this election wasn't right. The result wasn't right. And for anybody to, whatever side of the political divide they're on, for anybody to just stand up and say, well, that's the way it is. You know, this is the result. We got to live with it. I find it appalling. I find it a betrayal of the entire country, to be honest, not just of President Trump. I mean, this is a betrayal of the American people, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I can tell you one thing. If the Looney Tunes think they're going to go back to the GOP days of John McCain and Mitt Romney, they're sadly mistaken. Because the people that pushed 2016 in between the Appalachians and the Rockies have a different view of what that's going to be. That Republican Party will never be the same. It is now Trump's Republican Party, and it liberated folks. Trump liberated those people. And if Lindsey Graham or Brian Kemp or Doug Ducey think they're going to have an easier time of it if they start backpedaling like crazy, that's not going to happen. That's going to make them an enemy of the GOP of today.
It's actually remarkable what's happened in Georgia. You may recall the election 2 years ago where Brian Kemp defeated Stacey Abrams. She never conceded the race and basically admitted that Kemp was going to become governor without acknowledging that he'd won the election. And ever since then, it's almost as if Stacey Abrams is actually the governor of Georgia, because she's far more present and accounted for than the governor, the actual governor himself. I mean, he seems to cede almost the governorship. He's a very low profile. He's been criticized by Trump. He seems to be aimless in terms of, I think he's just another one of these sort of establishment swamp Republicans, just like David Perdue, the senator from Georgia who's running for re-election. And he just doesn't have the kind of backbone. And this kind of defines the old Republican Party pre-Trump, just like we were saying. It's like we're going to go back to the days of losing with grace, like Bob
That ain't
Dole
going to
did,
happen.
like
That's
John
over.
Kerry did, like Mitt Romney did. Just lose and be happy that you were even in the race. And Trump changed all of that. Let's see if we get anybody going forward from here, the Josh Hawleys and Nikki Haley's of the world.
Well, the one thing that I thought when Sarah and I were putting this segment together was, boy, this is going to be one for Joe.
Yeah, I don't need to go off on it. I think what everybody just said was outstanding. I would like to throw out there, and I'd love to have your opinions on this. I think we're really changing out of the two-party system in America towards a three-party dynamic where you have the progressive left, outside of power, but works with the establishment power. You have the America First right, which is outside of the establishment power completely. And then you have the swamp uniparty, which encompasses Democrats and Republicans. A lot of the Republicans you all just named are far more aligned with Joe Biden than they ever were with Donald Trump. This isn't betraying anything. This is who they are. And the interesting thing about their little faction is that it has no popular support at all. They have the levers of power that they can manipulate to keep themselves in control. The power of incumbency is very strong. That's why these Republicans stay in the Senate forever when nobody likes them. The money that they can bring into the game, they get reelected every 6 years and nobody wants these people. So we have got three power factions right now. The progressive left, the swamp uniparty, and this insurgent America First movement that is outside of the levers of power. 4 years of Donald Trump in the White House does not take those levers of power. The America First movement wants to take the next step. They've got to take some of these levers of power, Senate, governor, House. That's got to be the next move.
Well, perhaps Trump will do as one of our earlier in the century, the last century presidents has done, and create the Bull Moose Party.
Yes.
Because frankly, this is now ripe. Our country is now ripe for a third party to come in and kick some serious ass and upset the apple cart.
The problem is an organizational problem because starting a political party with any kind of weight is an unbelievably large undertaking. But I will say this, we have to start thinking about the fact that the differences between blue and red America have become so pronounced that I'm not sure they're reconcilable. And I read a piece on American Mind this week called The Separation. And what it's almost proposing is to go back to the earliest days of the Constitution and have blue and red America basically involved together only in the common defense with military and other spending, which is indispensable to the infrastructure of the nation, and then basically kick everything else back to the state. So if you want to live in a socialist paradise with unlimited abortion, then Vermont will be the place to go, and they'll have a great deal of autonomy. If you want to live in a place with strong gun rights and strong traditional constitutional protections, you can live in Alabama or Texas or wherever. But I think we're reaching.
That's happening just now. I mean, that's basically what's happening.
Right, but we're talking about an actual constitution. And it would take a lot of constitutional reform, of constitutional amendments, some overturned, amended.
Oh gosh, then you're not in the United States and we have another civil war. Let me just say this one thing. And Joe, I'm a tough cookie. I don't hand out compliments too easily. That was one of the most brilliant political soliloquies I have heard in a long time. And because I was thinking about it today, these people are up in arms in Staten Island. They're up in arms in Michigan. Well, who voted these Democrats in? I mean, okay, you're right. We've got to go to the governorships. We've got to go to the state legislatures. We've got to go to council. We've got to go to, trash supervisor.
It's not just the Democrats who voted these useless Republican rhinos in. Who voted them in? Because, I don't know anybody who supports these people, yet they still keep getting elected year after, every time. It's amazing.
You're right, Joe, that there's the brand of moderate establishment, Republican or Democrat, has no value left anymore. But if they put themselves together into a formalized uniparty, maybe they should call it the uniparty. That'd be a good name for it, because that's what it would do. It would unite squishy, soft, spineless Republicans and Democrats who care only about projecting their own power, and then let the socialists and the constitutionalists or the Trumpists or whatever you want to call them battle it out for the true soul of America.
I don't know about you guys, but to me, the people moonwalking away from Trump are conveniently forgetting what he's done for their careers. Mm-hmm. You know, it always seems like when the Democrats lose, they band together, but when the Republicans lose, they cannibalize each other, minus the condiments and garnish. Final words, guys.
I just wanted to go back for a minute, actually, to the article to which Tim was referring, and I read that article as well, and in principle, I love the idea. But what was interesting, Lisa, is that you interjected with the idea that even though this, as a formal arrangement, it would take so much at the constitutional level for everyone to come to some kind of agreement that this is how we're going to go forward. But then you interjected with the idea that it's kind of happening almost organically. And I believe that actually that's what's going to happen, because I believe that however, when the dust settles from the 2020 election, whoever happens to be in the White House come January 21st, 2021, if it's Joe Biden, I believe that the red states are actually going to really start saying, you know what, we're just not going to do these things that the federal government is imposing on us. I think more and more they're going to say, no, we're not complying with that. We're not complying with this. And you know what? I think if Donald Trump manages to come out of this with a second term somehow, I think the same thing is going to happen. And the blue states will be so enraged that he managed to even get a second term that they will just say, we're done. You know, California and Washington and New York and New Jersey and all these states, they're going to say, yeah, we're just not even playing the federal government's game anymore. You know, whatever, you know, we're going to do our own thing. We're sovereign states, you know, and that's it. So I almost think that kind of separation is almost going to happen organically.
And there's a lot to be said for it, because it's a win-win, Graham. It's the only solution I've seen, albeit a very, very complicated, lengthy one. It's the only solution I've seen that basically gives everybody what they want, which is the right to be progressive, the right to be a Trumpist, the right to be a squishy establishment moderate, whatever. It's the only solution that basically is a win-win for everybody. Everything else is a zero-sum game. Whoever gets 51% now absolutely basically tyrannizes the 49% in one way or another.
Yeah, the fly in the ointment, though, is that liberals have no shame in destroying their own little community and then moving into yours, which is what we see with Californians. They've trashed their state, so now they're moving to other states where they're going to do all the same policies that destroyed California all over again in these states. So what do? Do we put up electrified fences to keep them out of our states? You know, that's what the problem is going to be.
Build a wall, have Mexico pay for it.
Yeah, their values follow them to the new red states that they are escaping to for tax relief and regulation relief. Yeah, they're
no shame about it.
They're escaping the very things that they then bring back to life in the new states. And the best example is Vermont, which used to be I think it was one of the elections of FDR. It was when Alf Landon won. He only won 2 states, Maine and Vermont, the Republican. And now, less than 100 years later, Vermont is a socialist paradise. And that's because New Yorkers flocked out of the high-tax state and into Vermont and brought all of their values with them.
Well, I will say it's not a good look for Republicans. Wasn't it John F. Kennedy who said, or perhaps it was his brilliant ghostwriter Ted Sorensen, who said, victory has 1,000 fathers, but defeat is an orphan? You got to really feel for Trump these days. Thanks, guys. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well as Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all our TV productions. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $17.76 for a year. And remember, liberty all the time and everywhere.